Hey guys, congratulations on 200 episodes.
Congrats on episode 200.
That's awesome.
Congrats on 200 episodes.
200 episodes is no small feat.
Wow.
Congratulations on 200 episodes
of the Tom Storey Show.
Holy smokes, you guys are crushing it.
Tom and Steve are more committed to the Tom Storey Show podcast than most real estate agents are committed to their real estate career or their marriage.
The good realtor, bad realtor dynamic you guys have tends to set up really interesting conversations.
Appreciate Tom and Steve, what you guys are doing for the industry.
I know how much work it is to get to that level.
Super honored to be in your circle.
You create some of the best real estate videos online today.
Proud of you guys.
You're bringing incredible content to the marketplace.
A go-to resource for a lot of people in the general public.
Your wealth of knowledge, wealth of information.
That takes immense effort and resilience, a lot of hard work.
Keeping it professional, but also light and humorous.
Full of knowledge.
Man, what can't you guys do well?
I actually enjoy watching all of your stuff, and I don't watch a ton of other creators.
Congratulations, boys.
Pretty cool stuff.
Congratulations on 200.
Best of luck, and I'm excited to see what you come up with in 2026.
Now, did you ever think, when you decided to copy our show, that it would last this long?
I never would have thought you guys would last this long.
I beg you not to do it.
Don't know why more of your viewership doesn't subscribe.
Here's to the next 200 episodes.
Keep on listening in 2026.
And I look forward to your 1000th episode.
I'm happy for you guys. Good work.
Episode 201 to 400 can be called
the Steve Karrasch Show.
I think it's only fair.
These guys should do less yakking on the internet and maybe a little bit more selling some houses.
Even if you're probably not top 1% realtors, top 1% podcasters will do.
My viewers would be a little disappointed if I didn't do this, so I just want to say, Tom, Steve, go f*** yourselves.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Why'd you set the alarm so early for, Lisa? My alarm? Oh, shit. Anyways, what time is it? Let me turn the light on here. Oh, I can't even see. I put my glasses on. Holy shit, 6 o'clock in the morning. What the hell? What did set alarm up for? Oh! It's a Tom Storey Show. Why the heck did you have these things start so early in the morning? Congratulations to you guys. Tom Storey Show, 200 episodes. That's incredible. You're smart, provocative, and genuinely entertaining. The laughs never stop. But it's moments, oh my God, it's early in the morning. It's moments like Steve's Jiu-Jitsu black eye. And oh yeah, I think there was an episode a week or two ago where he separated his shoulder. Come on, take a look at man. And Tom, your nose protruding glasses and that wannabe mustache. You know what? This is a sweeper here, not that stuff you have, okay? Come on. From these unforgettable moments to a fast-growing community, you've built something that basically should be really proud of. It's special, and I'm privileged to have been a part of it. Here's to 200 more episodes. No, you know what? 2,000 more episodes. Congrats to both of you. You've done an incredible job. Happy 200th episode, guys.
Welcome back to the Tom Storey Show. This is a very, very special episode number 200. And for your 200th episode, you have to have on a guest for the occasion. And this week's guest is none other than Ben Rabidoux. He's the founder of North Cove Advisors and Edge Realty Analytics. Some of the best charts online. We're stats nerds here, Ben. And we really enjoy what you put out. And welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, guys. I'm good. How are you guys? It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're doing good. We're in the trenches of the real estate market right now, having difficult conversations every day. So I think your charts help people make decisions. We find them very, very valuable. I don't know, Steve, are you finding anything different so far in 2026?
Lots of listings coming to the market and not very many buyers. So more of the same is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was looking at the January numbers were just really, really soft. The sales numbers, Toronto and Vancouver. And it's always tough because like when you're dealing with December and January numbers, it's such low liquidity to begin with that you never want to read too much into it. But I got to admit, I was really surprised with how soft those numbers looked. Do you guys, I mean, you guys are the experts in this regard. Do you feel that some of that is weather related, or do you think that we're actually seeing like a real slowdown in underlying demand?
It's funny. I was actually going to ask you that because like I am in Toronto and like we had the most amount of snow in a 24-hour period maybe ever. And I can tell you in like real life scenarios for about a 4-day period, we had no showings on our listings or the stuff that was pre-booked was canceled. So I think 4 days was removed. I don't think we can say like that's the only reason, but to say that it couldn't have had some impact on the market. But I don't know. Vancouver can't use that excuse. They're just slow.
Yeah. Ben, I definitely think that's realtor spin. Just like if we have a slow March, everybody says because everybody goes on spring break. It's like that's not. If people want to buy houses, people want to buy houses. It might slow things down a little bit, but it shouldn't be like last week. Our open houses, we pitched a shutout, right? Like we didn't have anyone attend any of our open houses, and we do a lot of open houses. So,
wow.
Is that because of the heavy downpour of rain? Maybe.
Yeah. I actually have a different view of what's going on in Vancouver. My question was more, I guess, for Toronto. I could see the weather being a bigger factor there, but I have a different interpretation of what's happening in Vancouver, which maybe you guys
we'd love to. Let's start there.
Hijacking the conversation.
No, let's go. Let's go.
Well, look, I think, from a high level, when I look at what's happening across the country, I actually think 2026 is likely going to see an increase in home sales nationally. That's not a statement on prices. Okay, so a different view on prices, but transactions will start to perk up. And I think it's going to be primarily driven by Ontario. I actually think we're going to see Ontario home sales start to perk back up. I thought that was true in BC, but I'm just starting to get the sense that, this whole court decisions, the Cowichan issue, some of the, this whole idea of coexisting ownership of property, like I just think that's going to throw more of a chill over that market than people realize until you get some resolution there. And so I don't know if you guys have chased this rabbit at all on this podcast, but for the listeners and viewers, there's been a series of court decisions. This goes back to the middle of last year in BC that have sort of undermined what we've traditionally thought of as being kind of like the fee simple ownership structure, where the owner of a property is the sole or has the sole stake on that collateral, right? And now through these court decisions, they're basically saying, well, actually, we think that Aboriginal title can coexist with fee simple title. So in other words, you now become a co-owner of that property with an Aboriginal group, which is just insanity. Like that doesn't work. That just does not work. There's no lender that's going to lend on that. Right. So everyone now, everything's up in the air in BC until we get some clarity on this. And I think that's unfortunately going to be the story of probably the first half of the year out in BC. So it's hard to be super optimistic there.
I always wonder like the difference between the YouTube comments, the Twitter commentary, and then real life. You know what I mean? It's like I actually fully agree with you. I think just the conversation around it will scare some people. And we have chatted about it on the show before, and we've seen in the comments, people are like, I'd never buy in BC not knowing what my land would be. I don't know how that translates to real life. Like, Steve, is that a real thing in Surrey? Are your buyers saying that to you? Like what's the feedback you're actually getting? Are people bringing it up?
The YouTube commenters would never buy in BC because they would never buy in BC, not because of a land title claim. Like it is on the minds of my clients who are listing and buying properties, it is 0% on their minds. Like absolutely not. Now, if you read the news articles, and I agree with you, like the fundamental underlying of the title of the property that you're buying is a pretty important piece. But the buyers and sellers in the marketplace aren't there thinking about that. So I could see it maybe being in particular areas around Tsawwassen First Nation, around Lulu Island, where the issues are happening, possibly. But in a very small market, they haven't even really considered the fact, I don't think, that the entire city of Vancouver is under technical land claim.
It's right? 95% of BC. 95% of BC is unceded. This is going everywhere. Well, this gets reversed. This is going everywhere.
And I think it will be reversed. I think there will be. I mean, nobody thinks that the Indigenous groups want the land. Nobody thinks that. They want paid out by the government. And unfortunately, here in BC, we have an NDP government who's probably going to pay them with all of our tax dollars. So that's probably the bigger issue. But like on a day-to-day basis, no one comes to me and says, should I buy there because of Indigenous land claims or not? Like, it's not a factor if you're looking for a home to live in. It could be for possibly investors, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say is it's certainly on the minds of lenders, right? We are hearing that as a legitimate, like, how do you lend if you don't know that you have claim to the collateral in a bad event? So it's hard for me to see how that wouldn't filter through to tighter lending standards in certain areas. Like we are already hearing that. So I just think that on a trickle down basis, I just have to assume that's going to move the needle. So it's hard for me to think that, like, I had originally kind of thought that home sales were going to perk up in BC this year. And now I'm just not totally sure that that's going to be the case until we get some resolution. And as you say, a resolution could be they just have to cut some fat checks, which nobody's going to be happy about. But I should say nobody, but most of BC residents.
Well, the early numbers for February are actually looking better. They're on track with last year, thankfully. And then the new listings for February, early numbers again, but the new listings are also down from last year. So if we can reverse that trend of having just more and more listings coming and less sales, then I think you could be right. Like, I do think we're going to have a better second half of this year than first half.
Yep, I think that's right.
The beginning is just, it's been extremely slow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Ben, about the new listings, because for the Toronto market data, we knew sales were down roughly 20% from the same time last year. New listings were down 13%. Is there any encouragement in that those numbers aren't too far apart from maybe where they could have been?
Yeah, so actually what's interesting is if you plot new listings on like a 12-month rolling basis, it's this constant kind of rolling wave where there's not a lot of new listings, and then it's like there's a lot, there's too much. People will either, if the market's weak, they'll sort of try to hold off listing until they absolutely have to, right? Because everybody wants to do a strong market. And then, you get this kind of payback where listings are a little high. So if you look at the last 12 months, it was the most new listings on record in Toronto. In the last couple months, it's kind of inflected and starting to roll over. That's true in Vancouver as well. So we are seeing that new listings are starting to trend lower. And that's normally, once they roll over, they normally trend lower for the next 12 to 18 months. So I think you're going to see new listings start to slow. Now, what's ultimately going to drive that is we are seeing a really steep slowdown in single-family construction activity, particularly we're starting to also see it in condos. The problem with condos is just once they stop building new starting new developments, you still have this long tail. So we're going to have a lot of new completions for condos even in 2026.
Yep.
But the single family market, there you can see construction activities ground to a halt. So new listings coming out of that completion space will be considerably less this year. And I think that's going to be a story again for the back half of the year where you're going to see the single family market start to tighten, at least at the margins. The one thing that I'm watching that could be kind of the wild card in all this is I do not have a positive view on the rental market, unfortunately. There's too many dynamics stacked against it for the next year and a half or so. And so I think that you will continue to see sort of a migration of supply out of the rental market back to the resale market. So condos, single family that are, were bought in 2020, 2021, 22, and people are just finding the carry is too negative, the quality of tenants aren't there, and they're just going to start selling them. So that's the only thing I'm watching that could keep listings a little higher than they maybe otherwise should be. But I think that come the back half of the year, you're going to see new listings start to really fall off as well.
Would that not be seen as kind of a positive thing, that people that own 3-4 properties are selling one, it's going to someone that didn't own, that's buying their first place? Like, it's going from investor to more end user, right?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I've been saying to my subscribers that, when you think through so you folks are in the real estate space. So like if I was advising folks that are in that real estate space, the money in 2020, 21, 22 was in catering to investors. They they were just such a massive disproportionate number or portion of demand coming out of the pandemic. Going forward, like 2026, 27, 28, I firmly believe that the money will be made in targeting first-time buyers. They have been such a depressed cohort. We've seen home ownership rates for the under 40 crowd really fall off. you're going to start seeing them come back. We're seeing early signs in the data that they are starting to come back. And I think that'll be the big cohort that people are going to want to focus on. So you're absolutely right. It's a good thing to see some of that supply go from the hands of investors back to end users, particularly first-time buyers, is a healthy dynamic overall.
That's one thing like I've seen more than anything else in our business, especially for the downtown condos, is this year already, the amount of calls we've had from people that want to enter the market for the first time. And they're looking over the numbers and going, okay, the reason I'm reaching out is because I've been renting for a while. I never thought this was possible. You know, rates are no longer 6%, they're 4% or 3 point something, right? The prices come down pretty significantly. And I think more than anything, Ben, is like they're being stress tested not as high now because the rate. So like maybe they're actually qualifying. And what's been really interesting to me, and maybe this is encouraging for like the long-term market, is I've been asking these people, how long are you going to own this property for? Because if they say 2 or 3 years, I'm like, just keep renting. Like they just, this makes no sense, right? And they're like, no, we know it could continue to go down, but we've decided like, we don't need it to go up right away either. This is a 5-year plus. So we've kind of like cautiously warned all of our active buyers, here's how we're kind of looking at things. And I've been actually kind of surprised that they're not going like, oh, well, never mind then. They're like, no, like we've decided we can afford to do it now. And we understand the next 2 years could still be a big question mark and it could get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
This episode of the Tom Storey Show is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Hey, real estate agents, I bet you didn't get into the real estate industry to try to become a web developer. Realty Ninja will help you build a beautiful website for your business without becoming all techie, because me and Steve are certainly not techie. They'll set up your entire site for you. They'll migrate the content from your current site, and they'll take care of all the back end, switching the domains, all the things that you don't want to do, they'll take care of for you. Their team of in-house designers will make your new site match your current brand and help you stand out from your competitors. Best of all, Realty Ninja offers a free unlimited trial that lets you build out your website, and they do not charge you until you're ready to launch. That's right, they are so confident in their product and that you're gonna love the website that you build with them. They will not charge you until it's ready to launch. They don't even take your credit card details. Listeners of the Tom Storey Show will not only get an unlimited trial before you launch, but if you go to realtyninja.com/Tom, you will get 20% off your first year after you launch. A beautiful, functional, and professional website is absolutely a must in today's real estate landscape, and Realty Ninja delivers. So go to realtyninja.com/Tom for 20% off your first year. That's realtyninja.com/Tom. And now back to the podcast.
That's smart. That's the good way to build long-term client base, because you're right. Like you want to lead people astray. I think the people that are really hurting right now in the industry are the ones that were just cheerleading everybody in 2020, 21, 2022, buy now or be priced out forever and all this sort of crap, as opposed to having sort of a more level-headed approach to it. I think that makes sense. I also think, as we look at the data, like I kind of think that as we go through this year, there will be a couple of developments that are probably going to be beneficial for first-time home buyers. Like I do think there's a decent chance we'll see a serious amendment to the stress test or perhaps an elimination. Like I think that's this year. So, there's some things like that are in the works. I also just think, you talk about most buyers kind of having the view that like, wow, it doesn't really matter if it keeps going down for a bit. I think by and large, most people don't want to catch a falling knife, right? They don't want to feel like they bought and then prices fall another 5-10%. I think what's going to change is if we get to the point in the back half of the year where prices maybe start to stabilize a little, I think you'll see back to the market. And that I think is what's going to help drive some of the incremental volumes. It's interesting on the affordability front, because everybody's still really fixated on affordability, and it's not good. We all understand that there's challenges around affordability in the country, but I also think that people are sleeping on how quickly it is improving. So I was just looking at the numbers this morning. So a really simple data point that I track is just what would your monthly payment be to buy the typical home in Canada at any point in time? Through time. So you take, that just captures house prices, captures mortgage rates. So we're down about 30% from peak. So back in 2023, it would cost you considerably more to buy a typical home. It's down about 30% from those levels. And we're back to levels now that we last saw in early 2022, which again is not a great number, but home sales then were about 40% higher than they are currently. So in my mind, everyone's always fixated on affordability, and it is a challenge. But I think that there's plenty of room for sales to improve even with affordability at these levels, because we've been here before. We know that sales can be much higher, right? So I think it's more of a confidence issue, and I think that'll maybe start to improve in the back half of the year.
Do you think we have to have almost that flat line of prices? Because you're right, like affordability has gotten better. And I ran these numbers recently for City of Toronto. I think it's 17% less expensive per month on a mortgage payment than it was at the beginning of 2024, just based on benchmark price and where mortgage rates are at. Like it has meaningfully changed, although still very, very expensive. But I think the big thing you mentioned is that people don't want to catch that falling knife, but they're willing to grab it when it's sideways, maybe, right? It's not as scary. And that seems to be, it's like when, maybe, let me know what you think on this, but it seems like most people believe like the worst of it is behind us. Not to say it couldn't continue to go down here, but I guess it's like, if it's already gone down 30%, can it get to 35%? Can it get to 40%? Is it going to be really bad still? Or can people get in knowing, okay, it could drop another 2, 3, 4%, and then eventually it will level out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so Toronto, the improvement in the Toronto numbers is much more dramatic, because I was quoting the national levels in terms of Toronto. It's more like 40% change in monthly payments. So, it's crazy to me that we're here today and house prices in the GTA are down almost 30% from peak. If you had said to people in 2022, you're going to get a chance to buy this house 30% off this current level, all day long, I'll take that, right? And here we are, we're down almost 30%. This is already, by my math, the steepest house price correction on a national basis that we've seen in 40 years. So it's interesting that now you see people coming out being really bearish, being like, oh, it's just getting started. I'm like, how could you say that? You've got the steepest house price correction on record already. It's down 30%. Like, could it fall another 5%, maybe 10%? Like, it's possible, but you can't say this is just the beginning, right? And that I don't want to sound like I am incredibly optimistic on the direction for prices. I was very clear at the outset that I think sales are going to start perking up. It's going to take a little while for that to translate to prices. I still could see a scenario where prices grind lower from here. And then maybe, just as you said, like kind of go sideways for a while. This is very similar to what we saw in the downturn in the late 80s. You had an initial house price decline, kind of ground lower for a couple of years, and then move sideways for a couple of years. And the reality is that time does a lot of the heavy lifting in helping to improve the affordability picture. And that's probably where we're at. So I don't think we're going to see an imminent rebound in prices, but I also don't think we're going to be here a year from now and prices down another 10, 20%. Like I can't see that.
I guess the problem with buying the house in 2022 30% lower is that it's not a 2% interest rate. Maybe that's what's stopping people. It's a 4% rate, and your monthly payments are certainly lower, but still it's not as the true cost of ownership, other than if you're buying cash, isn't as low as the prices have gone down, right? And I think that's a big factor for people.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, okay, that's a fair point. You could have said in kind of middle of 2022 when Bank Canada was raising rates by 100 basis points. Prices were trending lower, but they were still 20% higher from 5% higher from here. My point is just, people always think that they're going to be the guy. There's always that famous quote about buy when there's blood in the street, and everybody likes to quote that. And then you get to the point where there's blood in the street and people just can't pull the trigger, right? It's just human. It's I don't know how much worse people want this to get before, if you're a first time buyer, I don't know if you can afford the payments. I'm with you. I just don't know how much more this goes down unless we get a really brutal economy.
When we started off last year in 2025, those first few months, and I can only speak as a real estate agent, actually felt like, oh, this is pretty good. And then, I'm not going to rehash. We know what happened, trade talk, whatever. And then that's all people could think about, whether right or wrong or opinions. That's one thing. Sales numbers were bad. The older generation were kind of stuck in place. They weren't making decisions because they were scared, because they were watching the news all day. Are we going to be talking about Kuzma? Is this all we're going to be talking about now coming up in 2026? Is this the new version of this? And is it going to have as big of an impact as what we saw last year?
Yeah, well, so a couple points on that. You're absolutely right. I had the view actually that 2025 was going to be a decent year, and instead we ended at 25-year lows for sales in Toronto and Vancouver, you guys know. So I think I agree with you. We were on track to see a decent spring until Trump said 51st state, right? And then that was like the wheels fell off. And what's to me is when you look at an index of consumer confidence in Canada, it is incredible to me just how weak it is. The average Canadian, they're just so pessimistic right now on everything. Like, we are below where we were at the depths of the financial crisis, if you can believe that. By these metrics, we're about where we were kind of the depths of the COVID downturn. Like, people are as pessimistic now as they were then, which is crazy. So, I think that is the big thing that's kind of hanging over this market right now. What's really interesting is we look forward in 2026. You've got the US midterms coming up in November. If you look at the polls, Trump's popularity is not good. And so he very much risks losing either the House and or the Senate. And if that happens, he becomes effectively a lame duck president. It's very difficult for him to get a lot of, really anything meaningful passed. And you also raise the risk that there's more inquiries into some of the kind of, dealings that he's had in the past. None of that's good for Trump. And so if you ask yourself, well, what's he likely to do? I think he's going to have to start pivoting his rhetoric towards the rest of the world, softening that tone, and getting some trade deals done. And so I anticipate that over the summer, you're going to see that really dial back. I think we will get a trade deal. It may not be exactly what Canadians want, but at this point, I don't think people care. I think if all we have is stability, even if it's not as good a trade deal as we want, as long as we know what we're dealing with, that'll give a sense of stability to the business community, and then things can start to improve. So I think it's going to be better over the summer.
I couldn't believe that consumer confidence chart. I was at the event when you presented in Toronto, the Loonie Hour investment. I went that night. We've had Rich on the show and Steve on the show before. And when you showed the consumer confidence chart and it was lower than the beginning of a global pandemic when we had, that's crazy, right?
It's nuts. It's nuts. But you can't argue with people, right? People, their perception is their reality. And they're just incredibly downtrodden on the state of the economy. And it's not only a Canadian issue. Like, we do see it in the US as well. It's surprising. Like, they're not nearly as bad as us, but it's surprisingly weak even in the US. That's been a big debate amongst economists, is like, why is it that these sentiment readings are just so low? Like, is it the impact of social media? Is social media just making us all miserable? What is there's no reason for us to be as pessimistic as we were during the financial crisis and during the COVID lockdowns. That's crazy.
It's the doom just gets the views and attention. It just is what it is, right? Like, every
doom
platform
gets YouTube, right, for the young folks, and then the other side gets doom from CTV and Global and whatnot, right? Like, I would love to see how those people get polled and how that works for consumer confidence. I'm not saying I disagree with it at all, but I think, for instance, there's a whole lot of people that are really down on trade and, like you say, all the consumer sentiment and everything, and they're all pensioners in paid off houses, right? So, like, I don't understand how you can be so negative for consumer confidence when you're sitting there with basically no monthly expenses and a government pension that's coming in. Like, it's absolutely insane to me that we could be in that spot. I can see how it could be there for the younger folks.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And there's a break in the different cohorts, and it is the younger cohorts that are a little more disproportionately negative. But, it's a pretty good, like, the way they construct the survey, it's a lot of kind of basic questions, simple questions that are very revealing. So they would ask someone like, hey, is it a good time to make a major purchase? Yes or no? Like, a simple question like that. Are you optimistic that the economy will be better in a year or worse? How do you feel about your job prospects? If you lost your job, do you think you can find another one? How are your finances? Like, you saving money or you're not? Like, all these kind of basic questions, but you aggregate them and you ask those questions repeatedly over time, you get kind of a pretty good sense of how people are feeling. So I think the measure is good. It's just surprising that it's this weak.
Can it get much worse? Have we hit the bottom of the consumer confidence charts?
I mean, you got to think so. Like, again, if you sort of try to parse out what is causing this, I really think a lot of this stems. You can see the fall off as soon as the trade tension started. It was soft before then. It was not a good reading, but even before then, but it really fell off when the trade tension started. So, you have to assume that's the primary thing that's holding confidence back. And I do think you're going to start to see a resolution, or at least a significant dialing back of that rhetoric as we go through the summer, because these midterms are going to kill him if he doesn't turn this around.
I can't have you on the show and not ask you about mortgage renewals. Whether it's a cliff or a speed bump or whatever we're calling it these days, we have two different categories of people. You've got, of course, the biggest talking point, which is the 5-year fixed people going from 1.5 to 2 to 3.5 to 4. We know their payments are going up. I'm not going to, I think like, I want your opinion on that, but I'd also be curious, do you have the data on like, we know there's a massive amount of renewals happening in 2026 and people are going to feel it, right? Like they've been living in almost, I've been referring it to like, they've been in rent control with their mortgage for the last 5 years because they locked in at such a good time. Do we know all those renewals? I'm most worried for the people that bought in 2021 where their house is down 25, 30% and they're renewing into a higher payment. Do we know what percentage of renewals are those people versus just someone renewing that had bought 15 years ago and just happened to get that really low rate going through the cycle?
Buying a home is probably the biggest financial decision you will ever make. Your inspection should bring clarity, not anxiety. For more than 45 years, Carson Dunlop has provided buyers across Canada with calm, clear, client-first inspections. Carson Dunlop inspectors go beyond pointing out defects. They explain what's important, what's not, and how it will impact your purchase. If you're looking for confidence in your home inspection, Carson Dunlop is trusted by top agents and serious buyers. Book your inspection today at carsondunlop.com.
Okay, so there's sort of the way I'm looking at the 2026 renewals, and you are right. We're facing the highest level of renewals on record this year. They sort of break down into two main cohorts. It's really interesting. Like the Bank of Canada's done some good work in modeling this out, and when you look at the change in payments at renewal, it almost looks like a U. There's kind of like two tails on either end, and then like not a lot in the middle. And the two tails are either you're going to see a huge increase in payments, and on the other tail, you're going to see a big decrease in payment. You say, well, why would that be? Well, you're right. There's one very sizable cohort of borrowers that locked into very low rates in 2021 at the dead lows. 2021 was the dead lows for interest rates that we've ever seen in Canada. We're now lapping that in terms of 5-year renewal cycle. So you got a big cohort in that. And there will be a number of them, by the Bank of Canada's math, about 25% of all borrowers renewing this year will see payments increase in excess of 20% per month. Okay, so it's a big chunk. On the other end, you've got people who took out 2 and 3 year terms, basically at peak in 23-24, and they will be facing a considerable decrease in payments. So it's this really bizarre dynamic. And so when you average it all out, it's about an 8% payment increase across all Canadians this year, which is, really manageable. What I do think now you asked like, well, what share of those borrowers that are facing those kind of 20, 30, 40% payment increases, what share of them are going to be negative equity? We don't have great data on that. But I think we can safely assume from those numbers sort of two things. One is, most borrowers will be fine. Okay, the mortgage folks that I'm talking to, they're saying absolutely we're seeing 20, 30% payment increases. People are managing, but it means that they're dialing back on consumer. They're eating out less, traveling less. So that's going to weigh on the economy this year. We kind of know that's the case. So that's one. But then I guess kind of like related to that is there will be a cohort within that won't be fine. And so, right now, mortgage delinquencies are still remarkably low. They're kind of in that 25 basis points nationally. They're going to continue to go up. There's no way around it. And so, both of those are going to be true. Most people will be fine. There will be a small cohort of people who will not be fine, and you will continue to see those delinquency hours up through 26.
Are they so low now? Like they should be higher, right? Like what we just went through. How are they? Is it because the banks are extending back the amortizations or working with people on payment plans? Like it should have been worse, no?
Yeah, it should have been. So there's a number of things that you could kind of, some threads you can pull there. So you're right. People always underestimate how many levers Canadian banks have to kind of keep people quasi-current. Okay, so they're very good at modifying loans, doing workout plans, etc. Extending amortization. Whatever. Most people don't realize that if you get into some sort of payment stress, the banks immediately have leeway to dramatically extend your amortization. They can even give you cover your payments in exchange for promissory notes. Like there's a lot of things banks can do to avoid declaring something's being delinquent. That's one thing. The second dynamic that I think is underappreciated is that in the last 10 years or so, we've really seen a proliferation in private lending. And a lot of that has been targeted towards those most at-risk borrowers. And in fact, there's a whole business model in private lending, you guys are well aware, where it's like, oh, are you behind on your mortgage with your bank? Let's refinance you out. We're basically going to wait for you to fall behind anyways, and then we're going to take your house. It's kind of a loan-to-own model. And what that's done over the last 10 years is it's pulled a lot of those problematic loans off the bank's balance sheet, so they don't show up in the official data, but they're still there. So when you look at, it's this weird thing where like mortgage arrears at the banks are still relatively low. They're trending higher, but relatively low. But you look at power of sales, they're really starting to move. And then you look at, well, who's all these lenders on these power of sales? They're all private lenders. Like it's crazy. So that's where the pain is first, but you roll that forward through time. It usually starts at the most kind of credit risk end of the spectrum, and then it works its way up. So it will eventually, you'll see it show up more at the banks as well as you move through 26.
I just ran these recently because I was going to do a video on it, and I did it by two search criteria. The one was just obviously the word power of sale somewhere in it. And then the other one is I did like all the different ways you could say all the banks' names, like the acronyms, the full like written out. And what I found was most of the ones that were it wasn't the bank's names. It just said power of sale in the listing, whether it was realtor remarks or just public remarks. It was private lenders or it was random corporations. It wasn't the banks that often. It was mostly the private stuff, which I found interesting.
Yeah. And so that's where you expect it to start first. It'll start at that end of the spectrum, and then over time, it'll work its way up. And you are now seeing more and more of the big banks showing, like I got a great chart. I track mortgage delinquencies in Toronto and Vancouver at Royal Bank and CIBC. They're the two big banks that disclose those geographic breakdowns. And like they look like a hockey stick. Like they're not, they've gone from 5 basis points to 45 basis points. So 5 basis points is nothing, 0.05%. And now it's at 0.45%, kind of in that ballpark. Now, keep in mind, like the U.S. consistently runs mortgage delinquencies north of 1%. So we're still not even, like relative to the U.S., we're not at an alarming level, but it's just we were used to having no delinquencies at all at the banks. And now all of a sudden you've got, relatively speaking, quite a few. So that's going to continue through 2026, even as I think the resale market in general starts perking up, at least in terms of sales.
What the hell is happening in Quebec? Have you been tracked? Like, why are they the one place that is the hot market still? What's going on? Can you fill me in on this?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things going on. Quebec, and I would also point out, so I do every quarter, we produce what we call the provincial chart deck, and it's just all the relevant macro housing data for all the provinces. And it's really clear. I've got a framework that I walk through for how to spot what areas are where they are kind of on their respective cycle. And it's a really easy way to predict how much momentum there is in a regional market, how long house prices are going to accelerate, all this stuff. So it's incredibly easy once you know what to look for to figure out, is there a runway for house prices here or not? And so the areas that we identified last year as being the top performers would be the prairies, particularly Saskatchewan and Quebec. And Quebec's just been remarkable because it's so much more affordable than Ontario, right? And part of that, there's a number of factors at play there, but one of the big ones is that they just kept a better rein on total population growth. And so they never had these crazy house price swings when we really let population ramp up. And they never really had the bust afterwards. So they've been sort of steady. They're dramatically more affordable than Ontario and BC, and as a result, they continue to do really well. Their economy also continues to perform pretty well. I actually think that from the data I'm looking at, we're starting to see signs that at least it's topping out in terms of sales. So I think it's going to start cooling this year, but it's not heading towards a crash or anything.
Is it localized? Is it people that like me got to French in grade 7 and then got an app and tried to learn it, and then I'm moving there because the prices are lower? Or is it's just coming from within?
Well, there's a few things happening in Quebec. It's mostly coming from within, but a lot of people don't realize like there's a lot of rental construction in Quebec happening, but there's no single family or condos being built. Like if you back out rentals, we're at like a 25-year low in terms of what's being delivered in Quebec. So there's no new supply. So the supply, the resale market's very tight. So that's just driving prices kind of to grind higher. The other thing that I think that Quebec has going for it is because there's been so much like Quebec is very much a renter's culture, and the rents are very low compared to other big parts of the country. So what that does is it allows young buyers to actually save the down payment to get into the market. And that's still today probably the biggest challenge, more so than kind of the monthly payment, I think, for a lot of people, is saving that down payment. The rents have been very high in Ontario and BC. They're now starting to come down. They're going to continue to come down, but they never really ran up in Quebec. And so that allowed that kind of first-time homebuyer cohort to save the down payment to continue to engage in the market. We're seeing that in Saskatchewan as well. So those two parts of the country still continue to be very, very positive. Like, just to frame it for you guys, resale inventory across Quebec and across Saskatchewan, Manitoba, like some of those areas, they're still sitting at 20-year lows. Like, there's nothing to buy. And here, like Toronto and Vancouver are sitting at 20-year highs. It's a really strange time when you look kind of right across the country, because everyone likes to talk about the Canadian housing market, but that doesn't exist. We've got like you got like parts of the country that are at all-time highs and prices rising 10% a year, at the same time that other parts of the country that are experiencing unprecedented price declines. Like, we've never seen this before. It's a crazy time.
When me and Steve used to go to real estate conferences and we meet up with all of our friends from Edmonton and Calgary, they look at us and be like, you guys are nuts. How do you trade in a market where everything gets multiple offers and it's this price? And it's been completely flipped now. We're talking with them. We're like, what do you do when you haven't had a showing in 3 weeks? like, how do you navigate through that? Like, you're right. It's just, it's completely flipped from what we were like for years, right? Steve, I feel like I've taken all the questions. You want to jump in here?
Can I make some comments? I've been on this show. I've been trying not to talk over people because I do that quite a bit. So I'm just going to make a few comments of what we were talking about. So you were talking about just mortgage renewals. I recently got a chance to speak with Brendan Ogmanson, BCREA economist here, and my hometown, Surrey, BC, is actually one of the highest risks for mortgage renewals compared even to Vancouver, because Vancouver, just even though they've got very high valuations, they don't have a lot of mortgages in comparison. So that was one thing. Maybe I'll put them up here on the screen, Tom, if I can remember to edit them in. Financial stresses was one of the other things that he brought up with mortgage arrears. I am kind of shocked with, again, like you're saying, how fast mortgage arrears are possibly going up. But it's nothing compared to if you look at like late 08 and 09.
Oh, yeah.
Like the 08, 09, I've got it in front of me here, went from just over 0.1% to 0.5% within 2 years.
Yep.
And for the last 2 years now, we've gone from about 0.1% to now just over 0.2% in 2 years. So like we are not doing bad compared to the great financial crisis. And then the last thing I want to point out is he was talking about in a presentation that he did where the rebound might be. And maybe that's where I want to try and steer the conversation, because he also said not only is Surrey, where I'm from, the greatest risk of mortgage renewals right now, it's also the greatest risk of a rebound on the other side. And that's because the average age of somebody in Surrey right now is 25 years old. That's the average age of all the population. So he's like, you move this down the road, if not everybody just exits my city, you move this down the road 5 to 10 years. He's like, hold on to your hats. This is going to be crazy because we've got so many young people that are here and the population is exploding. I'm going to try and remember, Tom, to put all of those on the screen, even though I can't. We didn't do any prep for this, Ben, and didn't share these slides with you in advance.
So the only thing I'd comment, going back to what I said before about the private lenders really kind of taking a lot of that risk. So when you're looking at the mortgage arrears, you're looking at CBA data, so Canadian Bankers Association. So it really captures the big six plus a couple of big credit unions. My intuition would be, if we were able to aggregate the private lending sector, which really was not particularly large in 08 and is a reasonably big player today, I think you'd find that overall arrears are actually rising a lot more than they look, because there's so much of it happening in the private space that it's not tracked by CBA. But I take your fair point that I think any of us, if we had said in 2022, hey, look, you're going to have house prices down this much, you're going to have rates up this much, where do you think arrears are going to be in 26? We probably all would have said, oh, they'll be way higher. right? And so like he's doing much better than we'd thought. With regards to where it's going to rebound, I got a lot of respect for Brendan. I think he's a great economist. I would defer to him. I haven't done the deep dive on the regional geographies within BC. The only thing that I would comment on, and this is from a somewhat removed perspective of someone in Ontario, but I've seen this dynamic play out where we know that non-permanent residents, international students, temporary workers, disproportionately flowed to specific regions. In Ontario, a lot in Southern Ontario, particularly around the Brampton area. We know that's true. We know that's also true in Surrey. I think in the term, the direction for those particular regions is going to be much softer because I think that we will continue to see an outflow of temporary residents. The feds are very committed to kind of clamping down on that. And so in the near term, like I think what's going to happen is you're going to see rents come down quite a bit in those areas, disproportionately. And I think we saw a lot of investor activity in those areas coming out of the pandemic. So I don't dispute that they're probably going to be the areas that eventually rebound the hardest. The question is, what's the trajectory between now and then? I would say that they're also the ones that are most at risk in the near term of like considerable price declines.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to just anecdotally talk about court sales because I do a fair amount of them, actually, Ben. I will let you know that I think the kind of second or third mortgage thing that's happening in Ontario sounds like it happens a lot more there than it does out here. Up until last year, I have never pulled a title in my career where there was a second or a third mortgage. And now we're seeing them. But when we deal with court sales, I represent a bank quite often who is the first, one of the big banks. And when we're looking, there's a first, there's often a second or some sort of other charge that's a little funny. And then there will be a private third. The private third is getting eradicated. Like I hear power of sale, you might be able to recover some in the second or third position in Ontario. Right now, the reason it's going to court is because the first is underwater and there's not enough money left over in order to even clear the first. We try, but there's zero money left over for the second, or if there is a third, those people are just getting demolished and wiped out completely. So I think things are a little bit different here. When I hear about the mortgage lending that happens in Ontario with things like second and third mortgages, my eyes just, I can't believe it, right? Like I just get shocked by the amount of people that seem to just are like, of course I've got a second on my property. Like I think it's a little different thing here, probably just a regional thing, but that's just my observation that I'm seeing the court sales that are out there right now. It's the first that's lucky if they recover what they're owed.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, it's the thing with the private lenders is for a long time it was beneficial you as a first lender to have a second behind you because they would, in a lot of cases, work to keep the first payments intact so that they can control the power of sale down the road if they had to, right? And now you're finding those guys are getting completely wiped out anyways, and now it's just defaulting down to the banks. Now you're seeing the banks showing up as some of the sellers in these power sales. It's an interesting time, man. It's this private lending dynamics just added a different kind of wrinkle to understanding what's happening in the market.
Looking longer term, what's your thought? Where do you think things will be? Let's not talk about if sales will return at the end of this year. Where do you think things are headed in the future if we're talking 3, 4, 5 years down the road? I get my home insurance from squareone.ca, and so should you. Go to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show right now and save $20. A free quote takes just minutes. Go to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show and start your free quote right now.
Yeah, so there's a couple things concurrently that are pretty clear to me. Number one is that come the 2030s, we're going to have a condo crisis, but in the opposite direction. There's just going to be so few new completions for condos come the 2030s. I think within a year, condo starts are going to be, they're going to round to zero. Like there's nothing that's going to be moved condo space because you can't sell pre-construction right now. And, housing starts generally lead pre-construction sales by about a year. We look at a place like Toronto, we've had fewer than 2,000 pre-construction sales last year, which is abysmally low. In a good year, we're 30,000. So that tells you what the construction activity is going to look like a year from now, and it kind of gives you a sense of what completions are going to look like kind of 4 or 5 years down the road. So the early 2030s, I mean, completions are going to be almost nothing. It's going to be crazy. So you will have an undersupply of condos come that time. The question is, but where's the inflection point? And I don't think condos are going to find a bottom certainly not in 2026, maybe even not in 2027, but sometime between there and the 2030s, I think you're going to have just a rip-roaring market for condos. I also think you can make a pretty compelling argument that single family is going to be quite undersupplied. And by single family, I mean everything that's not a condo. So detached, semis, rows. When you look at building permits, this is a crazy chart. If you look at building permits in BC for single family, we have no precedent for how low they are right now. We have no precedent going in 1980. There's so little, builders are telling us that they have no intention of building single family. So you roll that forward, completions are going to fall off. There's probably a late 26 and 327 story. And then there's kind of nothing behind them in the pipeline. So you can even make the argument that supply of single family is going to be quite low. And so you're going to be, again, have a wide market, but that may take another, year or two. Rentals, it's really hard to get fired up about purpose-built rentals. I just think people still are sleeping on how much supply is coming and how much of a headwind these population dynamics are. I mean, I was on this early. I was telling my subscribers a year and a half ago this was coming. I think everyone was kind of caught off guard with how much rents have slowed. They shouldn't have been. And I think I keep hearing these calls for, we think the rental market's going to stabilize in 2026. It's not. It's just not. You guys, you're talking about some parts of BC where you're going to have a 30% expansion in rental supply in the next couple of years as these units come online. And we have a building boom in the rental space that we've never seen before in this country. And it's disproportionately concentrated in places like BC and Alberta. So, and by the way, that's going to hit at a time where rental demand is probably going to be negative, which is, people are surprised when I say that, but I'm telling you, the government is telling us that population growth is probably going to zero over the next year and a half. What's not immediately clear in that stat is that if the population is zero, what it really means is you're probably going to have something more like a 400,000 decline in temporary residents, offset by a 400,000 increase in permanent residents. And it's going to net to zero. So if you think about what that means, your permanent residents are your prospective home buyers. You can't buy a home if you're a non-permanent resident. You're barred from doing that in this country. So you got 400,000 permanent residents being added. That's prospective home buyers. And it's being offset by something akin to a 400,000 decline in temporary residents. Those are your renters. And that's going to continue for the next year, maybe 2 years. It's just such a challenging setup for the rental market. I still think people don't appreciate that. So I'm not optimistic on that space, but I think the other ones you could absolutely paint a scenario where things start to recover and we end up in a year and a half with a pretty undersupplied market, single family, and in 5 years we end up with a crisis in the condos in the other way.
What we've seen early 26 is all the good neighborhoods in Toronto, Ben, that the single family neighborhoods close to downtown, they're active. They're selling, they're getting, it's at today's prices. Yeah. It's not going up in price, but they're getting traction. Anything kind of not prime is still balanced. And then condos are condos. The 2 beds are moving, everything else is price sensitive. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, and you probably find anything that's kind of entry level single family is going to, because that's the first time buyers starting to re-engage.
Yeah, I totally agree on the rental thing. I think people aren't prepared for the amount of rental stock that's coming on. Have you given any consideration to this idea that all of this, or not all of this, a good portion of this purpose-built rental that has maybe switched from it was a condo site and now it's going to be a purpose-built rental site? Do you think that when we hit this next shortage, there's going to be the thought of conversion from rental to stratify those properties and then sell them off in what will probably be a hot undersupplied market in the future?
You're talking for the condos specifically?
If you built a purpose-built rental now, or you're building it now, and let's say it's ready in 4 years from now or 3 years from now, whenever it's actually ready to go, and then you look at the model and go, wait a minute, I was trying to rent these out at $2,800. That's what made sense. But now I'm only going to rent them out for $2,100. How about I stratify this thing and sell them off as individual units? Because now the condo crisis is back where we don't have enough. I think that's a real scenario.
Yeah. No, actually, you know what? I have not given a lot of thought to that. That actually makes a lot of sense. That'll be more a story like that could be a story for kind of 28, 29 and beyond. I just think there's going to be a lot of supply for condos specifically in 26 and into early 27. But that's actually really interesting. I hadn't given a lot of thought to that. That could actually help alleviate some of those condo shortages. That's actually a great point. I got to give some more thought to that.
I mean, wouldn't the government just try to claw back the HST that they didn't have to give to build the purpose-built rentals? Like there'd be some things you'd have to figure out making that converge. It's not that simple, right?
Yeah, the economics are going to be a little bit challenged on some of that to that point. But look, prices solve a lot of those. If you get into a true crisis where condo prices are starting to really rip again, it'll solve a lot of those problems. It's actually a really good point. I got to give some more thought to what that could look like.
Tom, a lot of people, obviously, in the comments are going to talk about CMHC and the Canadian taxpayers on the hook, and when all these people default on their, condos and all this stuff. I'm not worried about that at all. Who's on the hook for all these purpose-built rentals that are being done right now? That's all backed by CMHC, man. So if those purpose-built rentals start going underneath, that's the rental market could be the thing that crashes CMHC, not the individual homeowners leveraged at 95% or whatever it is.
Yeah, man, I've given this a lot of thought. So in one sense, this MLI program from CMHC, which is intended to incentivize new rental construction, it is the single most effective government program we've ever seen for delivering housing supply. I mean, it's remarkable how much it's delivered, almost to the point where it's now, it's maybe been too successful at bringing a lot of rental supply. What is going to be interesting, what I've thought about a lot is you had this scenario where people overpaid for condos pre-construction. They were paying 20, 30% above resale costs. This is more of a Toronto thing when now, those units are completing. The value's not there. Maybe they get some bullshit blanket appraisal from RBC to close or whatever. But we all know the value's not there, right? They just overpaid. And so in some cases, a lot of them are having to kind of come up with this capital call at closing. They've got to come up with additional funds because their deposit's effectively gone. It's evaporated into the ether. It's going to be interesting because there's kind of a repeat of that dynamic happening or shaping up with these MLI programs, because a lot of these loans were underwritten. The pro formas have some pretty aggressive assumptions, the ones I've seen, around rent growth and occupancy levels. And what we've seen is in the last year, CMHC started to roll out some kind of like rental offsets or rental holdbacks, where they'll basically say, before we give you the rest of this loan, take out your construction financing, you got to prove that those rents are actually achievable. You got to occupy this and get the rents that you showed us on the pro formas. And if you can't, we just won't advance the rest of that construction financing. And guess what? Now you got a capital call, very akin to what the condo buyers faced, right? So in one sense, you've sort of, it becomes this whack-a-mole in Canada where, the problems could, in theory, migrate from the condos to purpose-built rental space, especially in places like Alberta. I could see that being a problem, unfortunately. So I agree with you 100%.
I know you got to run, so we're going to ask you one last question. I'm curious about this. There was a report that was recently came out by Roy LePage. They had someone else do the report, but they said 52% of Canadians that own, like these are the snowbirds, that own properties in the States have considered selling based on everything that's going on, right? And then they said that of the people that were considering selling, 32% of them were going to reinvest that, maybe invest is the wrong word, repurchased a recreational property in Canada. Do you think that helps any of the markets like Collingwood out there, where it's like they boomed and now it's like they're very slow for sales volume? Could that have any real impact?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know that that's a trade most people like to downsize just sell your Florida home to buy somewhere where you still got to freeze for 4 months here. I'm a little skeptical if that's going to happen. What I would say is, the one thing we know about recreational areas is they're hyper cyclical. So, because you got to always think, like, you never have to buy a cottage, right? At some point, you need a place to live, whether you rent or buy. You need that, but you never have to buy a cottage. And so it's the most discretionary purchase in the world outside of maybe a private jet or a yacht or something. It's hyper cyclical. So when demand comes back, it's usually the thing that booms the hardest in the good times, and it's the thing that falls the furthest in the bad times because people just stop buying. So right now we are in very much a trough. The recreational parts of the country are getting smashed. they'll be the last ones to recover. So if we assume that maybe there's going to be a market recovery, things start to stabilize, sales come back, maybe kind of back half of this year, maybe that implies recreational property starts to stabilize and come back more late this year and into 2027. That's entirely plausible. I don't think you have to get too cute with the, money coming back from the U.S.
It's going to be hard enough to sell the Florida house. There's so many listings there. That's going to take a year.
Yeah, that's totally fair point. Yeah.
Okay, I know I said one last question. I'm going to give you one final one. No.
I want to make a comment on that last one.
Okay.
I just in case you guys have seen this, I don't know if you have or not. Did you see that Kelowna might be very close to opting out of the Airbnb ban, because once you get a certain level of vacancy, you're allowed to opt out of the Airbnb ban? So Kelowna, not mostly rec properties, a lot of rec properties and a lot of Airbnb condos that were built might be coming back to market. So we shall see. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
I didn't hear that. No, that's interesting.
All right, final question, Ben. Is there a data point throughout your career that you used to very much respect or think was very important that you no longer feel the same way about?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, there is for sure. I used to be very much of this view that this whole house price to income metric matters. And I was and I don't say it doesn't matter at all, but I just think that, I used to get caught up. There's this great report, this the Demographia survey, and they're always like, oh, the house price to income ratio in every city in the world. And you're like, oh my God, Vancouver is 13 times or whatever the crazy number is. And nobody actually thinks that way. You guys you operate in the real estate space. It's never like anyone walks into a house and is like, this place is 4.7 times my income. I really wanted to keep 0.5. That just never happens. They're like, what payment? Right. And so I've just come around to that view that that's just not really a relevant metric. You just gotta get to payments relative to incomes. And that's the only thing that really matters.
Honey, I know you love the kitchen, but this is 4.7. So we're going to go to the kitchen you hate for 4.5.
Yeah. Nobody talks that way. You guys know it's true. But a lot of economists still get hung up on that. There was a time I was very hung up on that metric. And it's not that it's bullshit, but it doesn't, there's no predictive value to it in the near.
Ben, this was great. Thank you so much for doing this. We were very excited to have you for episode 200, and really appreciate spending an hour with you, man. This was awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, we'll let you go. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Take care.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Appreciate it.
All right, Steve. Episode 200. We did it. We made it. We did it, and we had that guest, and that intro at the beginning was amazing. Look at us.
I worked hard on that, and thank you for everyone that helped us work hard on that.
Yeah, it was great that everyone sent in those videos. A few people that didn't send them in after being asked many times.
Talk them now later in the.
No,
it shows you who likes us and who doesn't like us, maybe.
Well, that was always clear.
And it was you asking, so it's not like they were saying no to me, which they all would have said no to me.
Yeah. Well, apparently, there you go. Episode 200.
You're the good realtor, and I'm the bad realtor. Apparently, is that what we're supposed to do?
Oh yeah, Millennial Morin. Well, he wasn't clear on who was the good or bad one, but I did find that very funny.
I think I'm the good one.
You're the good one.
Anything
All
else
right, guys.
to discuss before we let it go?
No, let's wrap it up. Let's let the people enjoy their weekend. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Honestly, episode 200 is something that I didn't think we'd get to when we started this. We started this, what was it, June of 22?
June 4th or 5th, 22. As the market was crashing, we needed to find something to do. So did I just rhyme that? Am I going to be a rapper next? Maybe.
Hey, you know what we haven't celebrated yet? It's the 4-year anniversary of the peak of the market.
That's probably around
February 2022.
Episode 200, the 4-year anniversary of the peak of the market on the Tom Storey Show. Next week, bro. I hope it goes down. I hope we don't have any cancellations. I'm very much looking forward to next week as well, because we're looking.
I hope my internet works, because I'm going to be in a different location for recording that one.
I know, dude. I just booked a bunch of vacations, so we got to talk about how we're going to be recording these at certain times when I'm on the other side of the planet.
We'll figure it out.
But
all right. Well, there you go.
We'll see.
Ben was an awesome guest. That was awesome having him on today.
I love how much he reinforced everything I say. He just has a brain that's connected to his mouth, unlike myself. So
he was saying all the things you try to say. You just can't get them out.
Yeah, I just can't get him out. And I also am not intelligent enough to do it. And he can actually make charts and I just read them. But other than that,
Barely.
like almost everything is there, including the last thing.
And by the way,
said,
I barely was Steve can read them, not him making the charts.
Income to
Just being clear.
to house price means absolutely.
We should have asked them that at
nothing.
the beginning of the episode, because not the people that are going to comment that aren't going to get to the end anyways. So
Don't worry. The good people have made it this far. They're going to leave some sort of a comment down below saying congratulations on 200 episodes and we love you guys for being there. I had some people reach out this week that I had no idea even listen, and they're fantastic folks. There's lots of real estate people that listen to this. There's lots of consumers that listen to this, and we're doing the right work for the right people. And also we're doing other work for people that want to trash talk us in the comments. So everyone will have said nice words, hopefully, down below. We had a great guest and we're going to keep going.
it would be great if most of the comments were like, can't believe you made it to 200. Just like backhanded compliments. That would be quite entertaining. Hey guys.
Oh, that was also in the intro.
We are just getting started. So buckle up, enjoy. This show will continue to go, and we're very excited about it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Love you. Goodbye. Have a great day.